What? We're live. First live, YouTube live on the Rational National. So I'm discussing Jagmeet Singh, who just won the NDP leadership race. So it was between him, Nikki Ashton, Guy Caron, and Charlie Angus. And on the first ballot, Jagmeet Singh came out with 53% of the vote. So if you don't understand the ballot process, I'll just go over it quickly. There were those 4 candidates in the race, and there was a ballot process where you have to win at least 50% of the vote on the first ballot or on the ballots in general in order to become leader. So in a sort of scenario that not many people in the media had expected, Jagmeet Singh came out the winner on the first ballot. So he was the favorite going into this, especially after, if you know Jagmeet Singh at all, you likely know him because you watched a video where a lady was berating him in his face because she thought he was Muslim, and he's not Muslim, but regardless, it doesn't matter if he's Muslim. She was some crazy xenophobe that was going after him. But he's a Sikh man, so he's a visible minority. He's the first visible minority leader of a Canadian political party, so that's a big deal. But he wasn't my choice for the NDP leader. So I had a video that I did on Nikki Ashton, who I thought was the stronger progressive voice in the race, somebody who had been strong on progressive policy and had really had a history of it as well. Whereas Jagmeet Singh seems like somebody who could potentially be pulled to the center if the established powers around him get to him and pull him in that direction. So Jagmeet Singh was the favorite among people already within the NDP in terms of the actual political leaders and of the media. And when you see major media papers and the established powers within a party throw their support behind somebody, it means they're comfortable with them. And usually if they're comfortable with them, it means that that person isn't going to really scare anybody in terms of the sorts of ideas that they'll support, the sorts of policies they'll push forward once they run in 2019. So, also something worth mentioning, Jagmeet Singh isn't a current MP in Canada, which means that he doesn't necessarily have a seat in Parliament, but it's not really that big of an issue. I believe Jack Layton also, when he won the leadership bid for the NDP, he also didn't have a seat in Parliament, and it really doesn't really amount to anything. He will gain one in 2019, and the hope is that we can keep Jagmeet Singh progressive. And it's unfortunate we have to start the discussion that way, whereas if Nikki Ashton had won, I wouldn't have any worry about her moving to the center. But Jagmeet Singh is somebody who may move to the center, so it's just a matter of reaching out to the party and pushing them in a direction or pulling them in the direction of the left, and hopefully keeping them that way so that Jagmeet Singh doesn't turn out being just another Trudeau or an Obama, where they say great flowery things, but then they get into government and are just neoliberals. So let's hope that's not the direction it goes. But it's really early to tell. The election is 2019, and I'm gonna guess, just the way things look right now, in 2019, I believe the Liberals will retain they won't retain their majority, but they'll have a minority government. I just don't see Trudeau losing enough seats to lose hold on government. So I think he's going to retain a minority government. He'll lose the majority. And I think that will be largely because the NDP will encroach on their territory, especially in their more progressive ridings. And I think Conservatives are just hopeless at this point. I think Andrew Scheer is the worst leader, or one of the worst leaders the Conservatives could have chose. They had Bernier in the race. So if you don't, I'm trying to give a quick history here on the Conservatives as well. So the Conservative Party also chose a new leader this year. It was really between Scheer and Bernier. Bernier was a guy who was bringing in new voices. So he was reaching out more to the libertarian community and getting some of those in, and really trying to devise a new message for the Conservative Party that was more, I guess, more modern and not so dated in terms of the Harper years. But Andrew Scheer, who is the leader now, and he won, I believe, on like the 4th or 5th ballot. So it took a while for him to actually to win enough votes to become the leader. Scheer is more of a Harper who is a younger guy. So he's like a young Harper. And I don't think that's really going to help the Conservatives in 2019. But you know what? I've been wrong before, so we'll see. But I really think the NDP are going to gain seats because of Jagmeet Singh, and hopefully the message he puts forward and encroach on some of those seats that the Liberals have, and maybe make it into federal power one day. But I don't know. Remains to be seen. I have Mary beside me, who possibly may ask me some questions that she has.
So I guess my first question is, how can progressives move Singh to be equally concerned about economic policy issues that have been the core of the NDP? This was the party that got Canada universal health care. What other accomplishments should progressives move towards?
So Jagmeet Singh is strong on social policy, at least in terms of what he says. Like Mary kind of alluded to there, when it comes to economic policy, it's not quite as clear where Jagmeet Singh is in that. So I mean, he's positioned himself in a way where we have questions like this, where it's not obvious where he stands, and so I mean, the way to push him in that direction, or to pull him in a direction that's more progressive economically or more socialist, is by being vocal about it. By whether it's on Twitter, on Facebook, whether it's writing him, whether it's showing up at meetings, protests, whatever it is, you have to show that an economic message, a progressive economic message, a socialist message, is a winning message. And I believe it is a winning message in Canada if we have a leader that actually encompasses that. But you have to show them that. If you're quiet at home and you're not doing anything, you're not saying anything, you're not vocal about it, you're not vocal about how you feel, then you're not going to pull the party in the right direction. Or even if you're like, screw this, Jagmeet Singh is the leader, I'm out, I'm going somewhere else, I'm going to be a communist now. Like, that's not going to help either. You have to, if you actually want a leader that is a progressive leader, you have to be vocal about it and do within the party. Don't just think there's no hope now that they've elected a neoliberal. You can't jump to conclusions. We don't know yet exactly where Jagmeet Singh is going to fall on economic policy. And I believe that he is malleable, and you can move him in the right direction if you're loud enough, if you're vocal enough, if you're specific on, you know what, I'm not just concerned about social policy, I'm also concerned about economic policy and progressive socialist economic policy. And be vocal is my only answer. It's again, the next election is 2019, so there's 2 years to do this, but there's hope. Just because the more progressive, on paper, the more progressive candidate didn't win, it doesn't mean Jagmeet Singh is just another Trudeau. He is also, I mean, it's worth mentioning, Jagmeet Singh wants to decriminalize all drugs, which I think is a strong progressive position. It's something that Portugal did over 15 years ago, and a lot of their issues in terms of addiction rates, and other issues stemming from drug use, especially addictions when it comes to hard drugs, have been alleviated because of the decriminalization and the focus on healthcare. And Jagmeet Singh has referenced Portugal in his stance on that. So he's educated on this subject. Now we just have to educate him on other subjects. And maybe if someone like Corbyn comes into power, it will be that sort of jolt that Jagmeet Singh and the NDP need to show, hey, a socialist message, a real socialist message can actually win an election. But we're going to see. Anything else?
My next question is, so right now we have Trudeau in power, and he's often aligned with the Macrons, the Merkels, the neoliberals of the world. And while they're all socially progressive, they're supposed to be good on the economy or predictable in the economy, and they rely on corporate power. And we know that has not been effective in our government. So him as a minority puts him in a really unique place to not only be further than Trudeau on social issues, but to really implement like a really solid economic message. And what is something that you think would be a good economic message for him to really promote for 2019?
I'm trying to think of specifics right now, but
Bernie's heavily doing the Medicare for all.
Yeah.
For all.
Well,
that's his.
I think that the focus almost needs to go with Nikki Ashton's approach. So Nikki Ashton, who was another candidate in the NDP race, she was very focused on people over profits. That was her message, people over profits. Whereas Jagmeet Singh's message was love and courage. So love and courage to me sounds like a Hillary Clinton type of message, and that you're just not going to win a federal election based on social policy. You have to bring in economic policy and show who you're really representing. So people over profits is a strong message to adopt. And really, so I think it was the Liberals who said that they were open to, or they wanted to raise taxes on the rich, but then didn't mention corporations. And the NDP in the last election said they want to raise taxes on corporations, but didn't mention the rich. The NDP need to do both. Tax the rich and corporations and make that a strong message and really show, yeah, we are concerned about the people, the wealth of everybody, as opposed to the wealth of those who are already powerful. And if you adopt that message and the policies that come with it, then that's a message that appeals to people. That's a message that appeals across party lines. So people are aware of how much power the established institutions have and how much that has affected their life to this point. Some have benefited, some have become rich off that, but the vast majority of us haven't. And Jagmeet Singh has the opportunity now to really, so one of his strong bases here are millennials, are young people and minorities. So if he's able to bring out young people and minorities and on the social issues and tie that with a strong economic message to bring out people who aren't young and a minority, then you have a winning message. So it all comes down to who is pulling the strings behind the scenes, and if he is strong, if he's principled on economic policy. And I don't know if he is yet. I feel like he hasn't shown that he is. He hasn't been as strong as Nikki Ashton on that, but I don't know.
Okay. And
anything else?
just my last question is: there's a concern as to whether he'll do well in Quebec or not. How does he?
Yes.
How does he woo those voters, or how does he have a message for those voters? Yeah.
So just quickly, if you're not too familiar with Canada, so in 2015 there was part of the issues that were being discussed in the 2015 election was niqab. Yeah, because the hijab is without covering the face, right? Niqab is covering the face, yes. I think. So there was an issue whether people should be allowed to wear the niqab in a citizenship ceremony. Now, this was really just, there's no debate to be had, because when you become a citizen, you meet privately with an officer and they have to see your face. They do see your face. There was no issue there. The issue was people wanting to wear it in the public ceremony. And so it's an issue that most people are in agreement that it doesn't matter. Do whatever you want. But Quebec as a province has been, they come at this at two different ways. So they're very secular on one side of it, on the progressive left side of it. And on the other side of it, there's more xenophobia. There's more bigotry in terms of visible minorities, and whether it's niqabs or turbans or whatever it is. That's more of an issue in Quebec. So there's this worry that Jagmeet Singh, as the leader of the NDP, where they need to gain seats in Quebec to really get power in Canada, that he will have a negative effect on how they do in 2019. Now, I think at this point it's hard for the NDP to do any worse there. So the NDP lost a lot of seats in the last election, largely because they lost a lot of power in Quebec. Now, that was with Tom Mulcair, who was just a white guy who was once a liberal, in many ways was a neoliberal, and they lost seats anyways. And it really had more to do with the Liberals and the Bloc Québécois and the Conservatives not doing as strong than it had to do with the Liberals and their message. So it's this game where it's hard to predict how Quebec's going to go. I don't think Jagmeet Singh is going to have that much of a negative effect in terms of Quebec because, like I said, they already don't have much power in Quebec. So they can really only, I mean, they could be worse, but I tend to think that they'll do better and that it will actually bring out a lot of people to vote who may have not voted in the last election or previous elections, but now they see a minority, and if you're a minority in Quebec, you may face these issues of race more than if you're in another part of Canada, and may bring you out to vote for someone like Jagmeet Singh because of the social issues. So I don't think it's going to be as much of a detriment to him, to the NDP, as some people think it's going to be. At the same time, we really have to resolve this issue and really educate people that a lot of people that are against the religious symbols in Quebec, they aren't racist. They're deeply secular, and they feel that there is no place for any religious symbols at all within government. And there has to be an understanding that just because you are wearing a niqab, it doesn't mean that there is any religious effect on the government as a whole. So there's more discussions to be had there and really dive deep into it. I need to educate myself more on exactly the history of Quebec and why they are more like that compared to the rest of the country. But I've been told and I've read a bit about it, and it's not just, as some see it, as a racial issue. A lot of it is a secular issue, and there are progressives who are against religious symbols in government. So, I don't know. We'll see how it affects Jagmeet Singh. I don't think it's going to be as bad as people think it is. Anything else?
That's it.
All right, let me see if I just hit all my points that I wrote down here. Yeah, I guess just one more thing I want to mention is that, so there are 4 main parties in Canada. Three parties that really have power. So the 4th party is the Greens. I ran as a Green Party candidate in 2015. I didn't win, obviously, but the Greens right now only have, I think it's 1 seat. They have Elizabeth May's seat, who is the leader of the Green Party, and I continue to think Elizabeth May is the strongest of these 4 candidates. So in 2019 there'll be Trudeau of the Liberals, there'll be Scheer of the Conservatives, Singh of the NDP, and Elizabeth May as the Green Party leader. And of those 4, Elizabeth May is the strongest on policy. She's the most progressive. She's the most educated. She's been an activist. She's outspoken. She's the best of the 4. That said, Green Party has a hard time. They're going to have a hard time. They're going to continue having a hard time, especially if the NDP actually adopt this more progressive socialist message. If they don't, then there's an opportunity there for the Green Party to gain some seats. But Jagmeet Singh, regardless of me not being as satisfied with his positions as I would be with Nikki Ashton as the leader, he's still better than Tom Mulcair. And I think it's going to help the NDP regain a lot of those progressives that were lost to the Liberals in 2015. And a lot of that, honestly, was because, well, one, Trudeau spoke a good game. He sounded like a progressive. But mainly it's because nobody wanted Harper to have another term. And people just wanted to vote for the party that was going to beat that was going to beat Stephen Harper. So they voted for Trudeau. And that's where we are. So I think I may have said this prediction already, but I'm going to end on it. I think 2019, Liberals are going to, right now they have a majority government. I think they're going to have a minority government in 2019. I think the NDP will gain seats. I think the Conservatives will pretty much stay the same or lose a few. So I think Liberals will lose seats because of the NDP gaining seats, is how I think it's going to play out. And I think it will largely be because Jagmeet Singh will be adopting a more progressive message that people haven't really heard on a national level. And it's something that we're itching for. And it's a movement you see growing within the world, whether it's Bernie Sanders or Jeremy Corbyn. That progressive or that socialist message, democratic socialism, that is growing within our Earth, planet Earth. And it's going to continue to grow as people, read more, get more educated on these subjects, these policies, realize that neoliberalism hasn't worked, realize that conservatism obviously hasn't worked, and the only answer is something we haven't tried yet. We haven't really tried for a while anyways, and that is true democratic socialism, true progressivism, true whatever you want to call it, but true left policies. And I hope that's what Jagmeet Singh brings, and we're going to see how it all plays out. That's it. Cool? Nothing else? All right, thanks for watching, and later.